So you're the founder of InsideOut, which is an incredible mental health platform, which you've built from just an idea into now an award-winning company. Let's start with advice for startup founders, people that want to go on that journey of building something really cool. What advice would you give to, aspiring entrepreneurs?
Wow, where to start?
Easy question to get us going.
Easy start to dive into. So I think coming up with the idea is obviously the first kind of part of the journey towards becoming a founder. And I think what I have found has worked really well with InsideOut is we're solving a problem that was pertinent to myself.
Sure.
And so with that, when you solving a problem that you know exists because you've experienced it firsthand, I think it's a lot easier to then show a true level of authenticity and passion for what you're doing, because it comes from a place of I've been there myself and I want to make this better and I want to improve it for other people. Whereas, we do see people that, particularly in our space, have come into it because there's been a huge rise in cases of mental illness. And it pains me to say that, but there are people out there that are in it, what can I do in order to get rich quick schemes?
Exactly.
And and it comes through, right? When we're talking to our customers, they can pull out those that are in it for money, those that are in it for actually making a social impact. So that would always be one of my first things, the problem you're solving, how passionate about it are you? And is it something you've experienced firsthand, and is it painful for you without your solution? Because if your solution didn't exist, would the world kind of continue as it is, or would there be a major kind of crick in the road where something needs to kind of come into the market?
So solving your own problem.
Solving your own problem, I'd definitely say. And then I think there's something about getting the right people around you, because we've been through the pains of making bad hires, getting perhaps investors that had different motivations, and that was in a different business. And so I think it's really important that you get people in, both investors and also team members, that are all pulling in the same direction. And for us, working in mental health, it's somewhat easier because people tend to want to work for us because they've experienced their own mental health challenges, and so they kind of buy into the mission and the vision and the values because of their own battles themselves. But hiring that really amazing team around you is so critical to get the right people on board, because it can make and break a business essentially. And then I'd also say getting it funded in the right possible way. We hear all the time about being bootstrapped and doing things in a lean startup mode, and that's great. And we have tried to do that, but that will limit progress and it will limit success. So I think just being really clear with yourself as to what funding and investment do you need, where's that going to take you to, and when people challenge you on it, holding your ground to say, well, I could do it this way, but this will actually enable us to do this. And I think it's partly your role as a founder to educate people when you're raising investment, to make sure that you get the right level of funding in to support the growth of your business. And then I'd say the most important one, I think, is actually speaking to your customers.
Oh, yeah.
What
something that people just never do for some strange reason.
I've seen so many founders where they just go hell for leather into developing a product, push it out into the market, and then they wonder why no one uses it. We spent the best part of a year going out talking to therapists and coaches, talking to end users, talking to HR directors to really understand what were the pain points for them, what were the push and pull triggers that would want them to buy our solution, because we weren't sure when we launched the business whether it should be B2B or B2C to start with. And so all of these important questions and important surveys and interviews and so on helped us to understand how to position the business. And so that would be a number one tip, I think. And never stop talking to your customers either, because even now, 3 and a bit years in, we're still always talking to our customers and our users.
And it's so important for the leadership to keep doing that. It's not something you want just to delegate, because if you are not in touch with what the market needs, then it's hard for you to set that vision that responds to that direction, right? You mentioned investment a few times there. You've raised some capital to help build your company. You did a friends and family round. You've got some angels on board. What tips would you give to entrepreneurs that are looking to raise money? Maybe they're struggling to do the pitch or to get in touch with the right people, or inevitably they're getting so many no's and a setback and they just feel like they don't want to keep going. What recommendations would you give to those that are looking to raise like you have done?
Yeah, I think first of all, never give up would always be my number one. There will always, you never know when that next conversation, that next phone call might lead to something. So that would be how I'm going to sort of frame this answer to that question. Never give up. if you don't enjoy raising money, 2 things I would encourage you to think about. Is a founder and running a company the right thing for you? Because inevitably you will always have to raise money if you're in the tech space, unless you're lucky enough to get to break even and you don't need to raise capital. Yeah. But that will always be kind of the backbone to the business, and part of your role as a founder is going out selling the business to investors and raising that capital, which if it doesn't come easily to you, and to be honest, at the beginning of the journey, it was something I hated doing. I was like selling my soul to the devil. I really didn't like it. But you build confidence over time. You get more used to going out and pitching. But if you're finding that it's not your forte, I would find, a co-founder if you don't already have one, or somebody else, within your senior leadership team that can support you with that part of the journey. And yes, you'll probably still be the one going out to do the pitches, but if they can help with lead generation. And one of the things that we do at InsideOut is think about raising investment as a sales pipeline. So, building out that funnel, identifying who we want our investors to be, and then from there kind of creating lists of people that we want to reach out to. And we developed ICPs for the investors. So for us it was
initial customer profile?
Basically. So your ICP is your customer profile, ideal customer profile. And ultimately, who do we want them to be? So for us, yes, we're a commercial business, but we're also social impact. And so we want to bring in investors that understand that we are here to make a difference. We save lives, ultimately. We get feedback each day saying, you've improved my life, and sometimes you've even saved my life, and which is amazing. And that gets us out of bed on the really hard days where things don't seemingly are going right at that point in time. And having investors where they're measuring daily active users, monthly active users, like for us, that's not the right metric, because ultimately we want people to come to us, use our platform, and when they feel better, we'll happily let them go back out into the world without us.
You don't want to keep them forever, do you?
No, exactly, because we don't want to drive addiction to the platform. So for us, we've had to educate some investors around that. And sometimes we've even just parked the conversation and just said, look, this isn't the right fit for us. And perhaps, let's leave the conversation here for now, because it is important you get the investors that understand in your mission, your vision, your values, obviously, but also the right business reporting metrics. So that, because they'll be pushing you to achieve, whatever KPIs and milestones that you've agreed to at the outset. But if they're not the right ones for you in the business, it can completely derail you and send you off in a different tangent. So I'd say stay true to, your business. You know your business better than anyone does. You know where that business is going. You understand your customers. You understand your users in a way that your investors won't. So that's your responsibility to communicate that clearly from the outset. To a point where we've actually turned down term sheets. So we had a couple of term sheets for several million on the table, and for various reasons we've turned them down and we've walked away. Bold,
scary to do, but
scary and bold.
You're right. It's a short-term loss for a long-term gain, because if you're not standing by those principles and those beliefs, and if you're working for the investors instead of the investors working and supporting you, it's not the dynamic which is going to be successful long-term, is it?
No, exactly that. And I think it's so important to stay true to yourself and your business and to get that relationship right, because it's essentially, you've probably heard this before, it's a marriage, getting into bed with your investors, and they're on your cap table, and once they're there, you don't want to have to go through the painful process of a breakup. So, ultimately, you want them to help you succeed, and obviously they want you to succeed for their own reports and so on. So, it's really important, I think, at the outset just to kind of get those right investors on board. So I'd go about mapping out your ICPs, whether that's angel investors, whether that is VCs or so on, and then consider the right point for you to bring on VCs. There are so many different funding models out there now. Maybe the traditional VC route might not be the best one for you. So it's the most common, it's the most sexy to some extent, but I would just say consider what's the right options for you, and
you. This is not your first rodeo with InsideOut. You did Jambo beforehand. So what are you doing, I guess, differently as like a second, third-time founder, which you wish you did as a first-time founder? Because I find second-time founders, third-time founders, they've often forgot more than first-time founders ever learned to begin with. Like they kind of have that gut, that intuition that they've developed for all the mistakes and the wins and the losses of the first one. What are you doing differently this time?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're talking to our users and our customers.
Okay, yeah.
So we made that mistake. We just went hell for leather into building a product.
Sure.
And then weren't really sure how we were going to take it to market either. So didn't have a defined go-to-market strategy with a clear pricing model or anything. We had this kind of idea of creating this networking app for business travelers, but hadn't really thought through the practicalities other than let's go and build a beautiful product. Okay. So that was the big thing. And then, like I say, getting it funded properly, I think was important. Some of the other learnings, we tried to be so broad with Jambo in terms of
sell to everybody.
Yeah, you were like, oh, we can sell it into hotels, we can sell it into airports, we can sell it into businesses, we can go to consumers, we can go to networking groups. So like we could see so many different verticals where it could sit, but ultimately we weren't focused on any particular vertical. And we had a very slim team in that business, and we didn't have the right resources in the team either to take it to market. So that was a huge learning. If
you try to sell to everybody, you're selling to nobody, right? You need to really, really niche down and then nail one market and then do the next one, then do the next one, but try to do everything at the same time. Like Amazon started selling books. Facebook was to connect people at Harvard University, right? I agree completely with what you said around, like getting the feedback and then building on top of that step by step. Some of the best businesses in the world, they started as like a one-page website or like a Google document or something, or a Notion document or something like that. Whereas the people that go out and they build something extraordinary and then try and sell it, if you want to make any changes, you need to go back 20 steps. And so, I completely agree with what you're saying. Yeah, and I think as a first-time founder, you're in this kind of bubble of excitement, and it's all new. And I'd come from a corporate life, so I'd been in the consulting world for many years. Yeah, me too. You did management consulting.
Yeah, that's right. So you're kind of in this, a city suit to them being a digital person. Wearing jeans and trainers to work. It was a kind of a foreign concept, and I kind of, I could feel myself getting swept up in the hype of a startup and being creative and so on, and that was amazing. But kind of my point I made earlier about when you're considering whether or not you want to run a company and what the problem is you're solving, is going back to that pain point. And I thought connecting people on travel was a pain point, because it was. For me, it was a pain point when I was traveling, and I was stuck in New York and Dubai and Toronto and these amazing cities with no one to go and have dinner with, and didn't want to use dating apps. In fact, I don't think Tinder was even, or Bumble or Hinge or any of the dating apps today. They weren't even around at that point, so it wasn't even possible. But when you're in a relationship, they're not the platforms to use. So, we kind of thought we were solving this real world problem. But then, after kind of I went through my own struggles with mental health, and that's why I left the consulting world in the first place. I think it just made me realise It just made me realise the importance of solving a problem you genuinely care about. It was a nice to solve problem, but it wasn't a must-have.
Burning desire.
Yeah, like gut-wrenching. Oh my gosh, I absolutely have to solve this problem. And I think that fire for InsideOut had always been inside me since I went through my own struggles. But the timing just wasn't right. And going out talking to HR managers in 2016, 2017, the word mental health didn't even fall on their radar, let alone them want to do anything about it, right? So kind of fell into doing Jambo at that point. But then obviously as we saw the market change and attitudes change, and there was a pivotal moment I remember in 2018 where the Princes launched Heads Together, and Rio Ferdinand started talking about mental health, and Ruby Wax and some other personalities. I just thought now is absolutely the time for this business. And that was that kind of shift. Whilst I was also having conversations with a friend of mine, we were in a WeWork at the time, and he was putting solar panels into communities in Africa so they could have power.
Okay.
And I'm doing a networking app.
Yeah.
It was kind of that moment of, what am I doing?
You felt the compelling desire to go to add value and make the world a better place.
Yeah. And just, help people become happier and healthier. And that's what keeps us going on a daily basis. Because when the tough is tough, and let's face it, it is a roller coaster, right? There are really big highs, but there are really low lows as well. That, you need to have that grit and determination and keep your problem you're solving at the centre of your attention and not deviate away from that, to make sure that you do continue back onto the next high, which will come.
Yeah. Keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah.